Hi guys, it's Tom here. I have decided to do some tutorials. This is going to be the first of hopefully quite a lot of them. I'll be covering some stuff in After Effects and hopefully some stuff in Cinema 4D as well. So subscribe to my YouTube and let me know if there's anything else you want to see. Today we're just going to have a quick look at some basic expressions, and we're going to try and figure out how we can create a circle with layers. And this sounds fairly easy, but if I just go and create a shape layer quickly, let's just make a rectangle and a fill. If I have got a lot of these layers, let's make 6 of them, and I want to sort of make them into a circle, it's kind of a pain, and you can see you can sort of drag them, and that's not worked at all. So there's a pretty cool way of doing this fairly quickly with expressions, and hopefully this will show you both how to do that, and oops, just reset this. It will both show you how to do that with expressions, and also it will show you a couple of things about variables and controllers, which, if you aren't used to them, are very useful, and they will definitely help speed up some of your work. So here we've just got our one shape layer, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a new null object, which is also going to be in the center, so these are both in the center. We're going to name this null object control, and all this is going to do is this is going to allow us to control the size of our circle, and also later on we're going to make it control the rotation of the circle as well. So we've got this empty control null. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to the effects and presets, go to expression controls, and we're just going to add in a slider control, and let's name this circle size, and this is going to allow us to drag this and make the circle bigger and smaller. So how do we do that? That is where expressions come in. Now I've got the shape layer here. If I just hide the contents, under transform you can see there's anchor point and position, and position is going to change where our object is, and it's got this little dot here in the middle, and that's always going to stay in the center with when you change the position. Anchor point is going to also move our object, but you can see this little dot here is staying in the center, and the reason that is that we're moving the shape but we're leaving the anchor point where it is, and the anchor point is what tells the layer to scale up from here or to rotate from here. So it becomes quite powerful. What we're going to do is hit Alt and click on the stopwatch here, and you're going to open up the expression controls down here. And at the moment it's transform.anchor point, so it's just telling itself to do what these numbers are. We're going to set up a couple of variables. Actually, for this one we don't need to. For this one we're just going to let's make a variable saying circle size and then equals. If I click off this now, I'm going to get an error because there's nothing useful in there. What this is a variable, so we're saying circle size equals. We haven't said what it equals yet. So if I go back up to this control layer, you see I've got this circle size and the slider here. If I go back down here and I click on this little pick whip icon, I can drag this to wherever I want, and I'm going to drag this up to here, up to this slider, and you can see it's added in this comp, so this composition dot layer, so it's looking for a layer and it's found layer control, and then the effect circle size up here, and then the sub effect slider, or the keyframeable bit slider. So that is now going to reference this. So if we type in circle size, it's going to give us an error, and that's because the anchor point is dimension 2, not 1. What does that mean? Down here you can see there's 2 numbers, so you can control this going on the x-axis with the first number, or on the y-axis with the second number. And the way that you tell After Effects in expressions what to control with these are these square brackets here. So if I were to say, let's move it 50 on the x-axis and 200 on the y-axis, we've got square brackets, 50 for x, comma, 200 for y, and then end the square brackets. And now it's moved it 50 along there and 200 up here. So what we want to do is set the x-axis to 0, and the y-axis is going to be the same number as is in the slider for the control layer. So we're just going to put this as circle size and close the square bracket. Now you can see it's 0, 0 again. That's because this control layer, the slider is still set to 0, 0. Now if we move this, we can move the object along, or we can change the anchor point of the axis along the y-axis. So that's really cool. And if we duplicate this layer a couple of times now, you can see all these layers are moving with that, so it just looks like there's one of them. So that at the moment is not much use. I mean, it is useful, but it's not making us a circle. So for the anchor point, we've got that expression, so we're going to be able to control the circle size. Now we're going to do the same, hit Alt and rotation on the stopwatch thing, and we're going to bring these up. And we're going to create a couple more variables for this now. So what we want to do, at the moment we've got 2 layers, but only one of those layers at the moment we want to be controlled in the circle, and that will make more sense in a minute hopefully. But this control layer we don't want to be taken into account. So what we're going to do is, the first thing we're going to do is num layers. This can be, you could make that say turtles or whatever you want it to say. That's just a name for the variable. And then the number of layers we want to say this comp, so it's referencing this composition, and then num layers, so num and then layers with a capital L, and that's just going to tell us the number of layers in the composition. So if I click off, it will tell us there's 2. Obviously that's not what we want, but we can see there's 2 layers. But if we do -1, it's going to go down to 1. So now it's effectively got rid of this control. And there's more advanced ways of calculating this, but this is going to do for now. And then the next thing we want to do is, because we've got the control layer at the top of the panel, we're going to do circle index. And the index of the layer is going to give me an error. The index of the layer is this number here, the hashtag. So we can see the index of control layer is 1, and the index of the shape layer is 2. If we switch these over, this is going to be 1 now because it's at the top of the stack. And because we've got this control layer at the top and it's going to stay at the top, we can simply say index, which is going to take the index of this current layer, and then -1 again. And now that's also going to be 1. And if I duplicate that a couple more times and just open this up. I don't know why I moved it back up the chain. Hold on. Put it at the bottom here. You'll see now it's 4 because there's 4 of these layers and a control layer. So it's minusing the control layer from the index number. So let's just delete these again for a minute, and then go back in here. And the next thing we're going to want to do is figure out how to make it into a circle. So a circle, hopefully you know, is 360 degrees. So let's start with that. And then we're going to divide that circle, the number of degrees in the circle, by how many layers there are. So we want to, what do I call this again? So we divide it by num layers. So in this case at the moment it's going to be 360, or 1 times 0. And that's because it's dividing it by the index number, it's dividing it by the number of layers, and at the moment there's only one of these shape layers. So if we put this in brackets, it's gonna be like maths back in school. It's going to keep those numbers on their own, and then we can say times by circle index. And what that's going to do is it's going to take, this is a useful tip, you need to put little semicolons on the end of your variables, and it just sort of keeps them together a bit, and will hopefully stop some of those errors. So now you can see that this, very simply, is taking the circle 360, dividing it by the number of layers, which is 1, and then timesing it by the index, which is 1. So it's staying at 360 at the moment. If we close this up and we duplicate it a couple of times, you can see that now it started rotating these. And if we move this up, so we're changing the circle size, you can see that now it's rotating these around this center point, and you've basically got your distribution. So you can carry on duplicating those and adding to them and doing whatever you want. And this is pretty cool, and we can obviously animate things like this. So we can have these coming up. We could add other things in, but at the moment the circle's stuck. Really, we can't move it. So it's cool, but it's a little limited at the moment. So we're just going to delete these layers again. And now what we want to do is, if we go back into this rotation, so far it's really simple. We've just got these 3 lines here. But if we add in another variable and just call it control layer, and then we're going to use this pick whip again, and then go up and just choose the control layer. It's this comp.layer control has been added. Yep. And you want to add this semicolon back in again. So now we've got control layer, and what do we do with that? So this control layer, we want to be able to rotate the controller layer and have the circle rotate with it. So we've got this little bit of maths here. If we put all this in brackets, this is just going to turn out as one number, and what we want to do is we want to take the control layer variable, which is this comp.layer, and look at the rotation. So dot rotation, which is fairly simple, and all that's going to do is look at the rotation of the control layer, and then we're going to add on to that this number here for the circle distribution. So if I do that, obviously nothing's happened yet because I haven't rotated this. Now if I duplicate these a couple more times, I've got these, and on the control layer we can now rotate the whole circle. So if I zoom in a bit and say maybe we want it to be 0 here and that much there, very technical, and just give a bit of easing to them. It's gonna, oops, there we go, it's gonna it's going to spin the whole circle together, which is really cool. And obviously we can also animate this one. So we want to say here, the slider's at whatever size it's at, and change that. So let's make that maybe put a little polygon shape inside it. And then up here we can make this all the way off the stage if we want. And now, just with those really simple little bits of animation, just as F9, by the way, is the key to ease these keyframes. Now, if we play this again, we've just added in this really slick, kind of cool effect with, I think, what was it, 5-6 lines of code. So that's really cool. One other thing I should probably say, if you add in another layer, so let's just add in another shape layer, you can see already that it's, let's make this one a circle, you can see already that it's made a shape in this sort of distribution here, but there's nothing to fill it. And the reason for this is we've got this control layer up here, and all these are taking that control layer into account when they're deciding how many layers to divide the circle by. But they're not taking this one into account. So what we can do, if we wanted to add this one in, we just go back down to one of these. So we've animated or expressionized the anchor point and the rotation. So we could just do copy expression only on that, and hit Command and V on here, and it's going to be taking that, or Control and V, or whatever it is on Windows. And then the same for the rotation, copy expression only, and paste that. And now this is going to be part of our circle as well. Annoyingly, with this method, if that's not what we wanted to do, if we had, I don't know, text, say, if we wanted to take this away, we'd have to delete all these again, or just go through them individually. Go back to the rotation, and see here we've got number of layers -1. We'd have to change this to -2, or however many extra layers you've got. In this way, if we duplicate this again, it's now not going to take this text into account. So that is the basics, and hopefully that's given you a little more of an insight into the sort of stuff you can do with expressions. I'm working on a plugin at the moment. Let's give it 6 layers, which includes a lot of this sort of stuff. And let's just make these triangles, say, and do this, and you can see all this sort of stuff's built into the plugin here, which is pretty cool. And you can get a lot more in depth with it. Here I've added, obviously it's got the rotation, I've added bits in so you can choose how much of the circle you want it to fill, so fill half of it, say, and it's just going to fill half of that circle. I've added in other distributions, so you can distribute along other axes as well as the circle, and then mix them together and get some weird and wacky effects if you want to. And then there's stuff like sort of offsetting the rotations here, obviously offsetting the sizes as I did in the beginning, and you can do things like adjust, let's just reset these, adjust the internal rotation as well. So we could put this to 60, say, and it will make a little starburst thing. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with this. Obviously it's all just layering it up, and it gets more and more complex, but you also get more and more crazy effects. So, yeah, if you enjoyed this, follow me on Twitter or YouTube or wherever you want to follow me. If you've got anything else you want to see, let me know and I'll try and do a tutorial for that, and I will see you soon, hopefully. Thanks, guys.